Scout didn't come back that morning. He always did. Same loop, same pace, 5 blocks, then back, but today he stopped. Near the war memorial, beside a man sitting under the trees, an old man, thin, gray coat, canvas boots. And in his arms, resting like something holy, a perfectly folded American flag, 13 tight triangles, no creases out of place. He didn't ask for money, didn't make signs, didn't speak. He just sat. And Scout, Elijah's Scout, walked up, circled once, then lay down and stayed. By noon, someone called the police. By 1, the park was whispering, "Who is he? Where did he come from? Why won't the dog leave?" Elijah didn't answer. He just stood at the edge of the grass, watching, and when the wind shifted, he saw the name stitched inside the old man's collar, Bennett. Elijah blinked once, twice, then whispered more to himself than anyone, "That can't be. Thank you for being here." Sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those, quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now, let's take a closer look at what really happened. He didn't speak. Not when the police car pulled up. Not when the officer asked for ID. Not even when they threatened to call the shelter van. He just sat, still as the bench beneath him, one hand on his knee, one hand cradling the flag, and beside him, unmoving, was Scout, eyes open, ears forward, not tense, but alert. The officer turned to Elijah. "Is he yours?" Elijah didn't look away from the man. "No." "But the dog is." Elijah nodded. "Yes." "Then call him off." Elijah didn't, because Scout wasn't on. He wasn't growling, wasn't barking, he was simply refusing to leave. For the next 3 hours, Elijah sat 2 benches down. He didn't approach, didn't press, didn't interrupt, just watched. People passed. Most ignored the man. Some looked at Scout, surprised. A few tried to talk. He never answered. One woman offered him coffee. He accepted, tipped his head, didn't drink it, just let the cup warm his hands. That night, Scout didn't come home. Elijah left the back door open. He knew better than to chase. Scout had only done this once before, years ago, in New Mexico. A child had gone missing. Search parties gave up. Scout didn't. Stayed by a fence in the desert for 2 nights straight. The girl was found a mile away, dehydrated, silent, but safe. And when Elijah arrived, Scout was sitting there, still watching the horizon. So now, Elijah trusted him again. Scout didn't misread people. He waited with them when no one else did. The next morning, Elijah returned. The man was still there. Same bench, same posture, same silence. But now, Scout had shifted, no longer at his feet. Scout sat directly beside him, shoulder to shoulder, heads almost level, watching the fountain, watching everything, watching nothing. Elijah brought 2 cups of black coffee, set one on the ground near the bench. Didn't say a word, then sat again. 2 benches away. Waited. People were starting to talk. The cashier at Nelson's diner said he hasn't moved for 3 days, hasn't bathed either. The pastor at Grace Chapel. I stopped by with a blanket. He nodded but didn't take it. A veteran in town, Korean War, retired machinist. I know that stare. It's not empty, it's full, and he's trying not to spill. But it was the children who noticed something else. A boy walking home from school whispered to his sister, "That dog doesn't even blink when the buses go by." And she replied, "I think he's protecting the man." On the 3rd day, Elijah moved closer. Not to question, not to pry, just to see. And that's when he noticed the detail. The flag, it wasn't just neatly folded. It was perfect, tight, crisp, edges aligned so precisely. It could have been pressed between glass, not a crease out of place. And on one corner, tucked subtly into the inner triangle, was a hand-stitched tag, faded but readable. For Ben, 1968, Fu Bai. Elijah froze. Fu Bai. The name hit like a crack in old ice, a place, a moment, a wound. He hadn't heard that name in years, had tried not to, but it was there. Vietnam, outside Hue. November 1968. A failed medevac, gunfire through the trees. A body carried by a man he never saw again, just boots, and a quiet hand, and a whisper, "Don't move, I've got him." The next morning, Elijah woke with a tightness in his chest. He pulled out an old photo album, buried deep, leather cracked, dust clinging to its spine. Inside, tucked behind a newspaper clipping, was a photo, black and white. 3 soldiers. One on the left was Elijah. The middle, tall, broad shoulders, eyes too tired for 20, was Ben Carter. The third man's face was blurred, caught mid-motion, a medic pack on his back, no name. Just the outline of a man, disappearing into trees. Elijah looked again at the tag. For Ben, 1968 flew by, and whispered to Scout, "You knew before I did, he's got to go." The voice came from behind Elijah, firm. Procedural city worker. Name tag read, D. McAllen. He pointed toward the man on the bench, still sitting, still silent. "Third night in a row," McAllen said. "Parks close at dusk. Can't have him here with that dog watching everything like a sentry." Elijah didn't answer, just turned slightly. "His name's Scout." McAllen snorted. "I don't care if it's Sergeant Scout or Colonel Canine. He's squatting, both of 'em." A second van pulled up. White, no markings but the city seal. Inside were 2 more men. One held a clipboard, the other wore gloves, not violent, just efficient, trained in how to move the unmovable. Scout rose, no growl. No bark, just stood, back straight, head lowered slightly. And for the first time in the 3 days since he'd found the man, Scout bared his teeth. Not to bite, not to attack, but as a warning. A line had been crossed. McAllen took a step back. "What's wrong with your dog?" Elijah's voice was even. "He doesn't like it when people try to move soldiers who haven't asked to be moved." The clipboard man stepped forward. "We have procedure. If he's a veteran, he can be brought to the VA." "Under what name?" Elijah asked. Silence. "Under what papers, what proof? You don't even know who he is." "He doesn't speak," the man replied. "Then maybe it's time someone did on his behalf." Elijah stepped forward. His voice didn't rise, but it deepened, like a slow drum before thunder. He pointed to the flag. "You see that?" The men looked. 13 folds, tight, no fray. No ash on the corners. That flag wasn't bought in a surplus store. It was handed, which means someone died and someone else survived. Pause, and whoever this man is, he's been carrying both ends of that equation for a very long time. Scout growled low, not anger, warning. McAllen raised both hands. "Fine, he can stay tonight, but it's not permanent if he's not moved by sunrise." Elijah cut him off. "He will be." That night Elijah brought a blanket, thick, military issue, still smelled faintly of cedar and memory. He didn't drape it over the man, he folded it neatly, and placed it beside the bench. Then sat, Scout between them, 3 souls, none speaking, all remembering. The sky above turned black, no stars, just the kind of darkness familiar to men who have seen war. Deep, heavy, indifferent, the kind that asks nothing and answers less. Elijah whispered, not to be heard, just to say it. "His name was Ben Carter. He was younger than me, better, kinder." He looked ahead. "He took the bullet meant for me, outside Phu Bai, November '68. His voice broke slightly. "There was a man who carried him out. I never saw his face, just boots, hands." He swallowed hard, and silence. Scout shifted, placed his head gently on the old man's knee. The man didn't react, but something in his jaw tightened, barely, like a distant echo answering back. At 4:12 a.m. the man moved. Not much, just enough to unwrap one corner of the flag and tuck something beneath it. Then he lay down on the bench, flag across his chest, hands folded. Scout lay at his feet, watching, guarding. Like a ceremony no one else had earned the right to see. By sunrise, the bench was empty. No sign of him, no tracks, no sound. Only 2 things remained: the folded flag perfectly creased, a pair of worn combat boots placed beneath it, and beside the boots, Scout, still watching, still waiting. Elijah stepped forward, kneeled, and there, tucked into the cuff of one boot, was a dog tag, faded, but still readable, BNNETTWH blood type. Oh. Religion, none. Service hash, 0128 Roman 20 Roman 20. He stood slowly, cradled the flag in both hands, then whispered, "I remember now." The boots were clean, not polished, not new, but cared for, laces tied in combat fashion. Soles flattened from years of walking. They weren't a veteran's souvenir. They were a working man's memory. The kind worn by someone who never left the mission, even when the war ended. Elijah didn't sleep that day. He sat in his kitchen. Coffee cold in the cup, dog tag on the table, Scout at his feet. The folded flag rested in the chair across from him, like another presence, not quite gone, and in his mind. The jungle came back, Fu Bai, November 1968. 3 clicks from the fire base. Too deep, too loud, too late. They were trying to exfil. Radio cut out. 2 men wounded. Ben Carter was one of them, and Elijah, bleeding, dazed, was pinned behind a tree. He remembered the smell first. Cordite rain and something metallic. He remembered Ben's voice. Soft, raspy. "I'm not gonna make it, Boone." And Elijah shaking his head. "You hold on." Then the crack, a single shot. Ben jerked and went still, then silence. Except for boots, moving fast, a blur of green. A shadow crouched low. Someone grabbed Elijah, a voice. "I've got him, don't move." He was lifted, not dragged, lifted. Strong arms, controlled steps. All Elijah saw as they moved was the patch on the man's shoulder. A faded red cross, stained with mud. No name, no words, just the hum of breath. And that steady rhythm. Of someone who knew what life weighed. That was the last he remembered. He woke up at a field station 2 days later. Wound packed, alive. No one knew who pulled him out, no one asked. Too many had died. Too many names gone missing. It wasn't uncommon, especially for medics. They showed up when needed, and vanished just the same. For decades, Elijah buried that day, buried it beneath training, service, and silence. He told himself it was just war, just luck, just duty. But the truth was, he never wanted to admit that someone had carried him through hell, and then disappeared without even taking credit. And now, W.H. Bennett had sat in his town, on a bench for 3 days alone, without asking for anything, except maybe to not be forgotten. Elijah took the tag, ran his fingers over the engraving, steel, cold, familiar, then opened his laptop, connected to the veteran record archive. He typed slowly, "William Harlan Bennett." Nothing came up. Then he tried again. W.H. Bennett, Vietnam medic, 1968. Still nothing. No medals, no discharge, no KIA, no MIA, just blank, as if the man had never existed. Except Elijah knew better, because he had carried that silence in his own body for half a century. And Scout had known before anyone that this was not just a man, not just a drifter. This was the last living piece of a story. Elijah had never finished telling. That afternoon, Elijah opened his trunk, the one he hadn't touched since he buried his uniform. Inside, commendations, photos. A half-torn letter Ben once wrote his sister, and at the bottom, wrapped in waxed cloth, was a journal, Elijah's field log. He flipped pages until he reached the day. Nov. 17, 1968. The handwriting trembled slightly. "Ben's gone, didn't see who pulled me out, saw a red cross. No name, couldn't breathe from the blood, but I'm alive. God, I'm alive." Scout rested his head on Elijah's boot, not pushing, not pleading, just there. The way he always was. When Elijah needed grounding, the way Bennett had once been. Later that evening, Elijah visited the bench again. The boots were still there, untouched, lined perfectly beneath the flag. He sat beside them. No one else in the park, just dusk, and a man who owed his life to another, who had asked for nothing. He placed the journal gently beneath the flag, folded the dog tag inside the last page, then whispered, "You never got your homecoming, but you're going to get your name back." They buried nothing, because there was no one left to bury, no body, no next of kin, no service number that matched official records, just a name. And a pair of boots. Elijah didn't file a report, didn't call the news, didn't write a letter to Washington. He just walked to the library, left a wooden box on the front steps. Inside, a folded flag, a journal, one black and white photo, one brass dog tag, a single sentence carved into the lid. For the ones who returned with nothing but silence. Scout sat beside it. All morning, all afternoon, people passed by, some stopped. No one touched the box. Later that week, the librarian moved it inside, placed it in a small glass case near the history section. No placard, no ceremony, just the display, and the silence it deserved. On Veterans Day, Elijah returned, not to speak, not to explain. He brought a folding chair, set it near the memorial statue, and placed the boots on it, side by side, toes forward. Scout sat next to them, still, as if guarding a man. Only he could still see. A woman approached, gray sweater, red poppy pinned to her collar. She stared at the boots, then at Scout, whispered, "Was he yours?" Elijah said softly, "No, but I was his." She didn't ask anything more, just sat on the bench nearby. The breeze picked up, and for a moment, it felt like someone else was there, watching, listening, or maybe finally resting. We speak the names of heroes, we sing anthems, we wave flags, but some men leave without asking for any of that. No headlines, no salutes, just footsteps fading into silence. And yet, somehow, they are still guarding us, still reminding us that a folded flag isn't the end of a story. Sometimes, it's a beginning. If this story moved you, take a moment in the comments to honor someone whose name isn't carved in stone, but lives quietly in your heart. And if you believe in stories that whisper instead of shout, you're already part of this one. Scout and Elijah will meet you in the next.